Um, Welcome again, and thank you all for joining us today. I know there are a lot of people joining us from around the world, so I just want to say thank you all very much for giving us your valuable time. We are here to have a real conversation. We want to talk about what is changing, why it matters to you, to your organizations right now, and what you should be doing about the question that we've come here to discuss. And that is that AI and quantum come up constantly. It's, over the last year and a half, 2 years, whether it's in boardrooms, conferences, in the news, in lunchtime conversations, it's a hot topic at the moment. But the awareness is not the same as understanding, and understanding is not the same as action. That gap is exactly what we want to explore and close today. And to do that, I'm joined here by two very special people. Introducing Professor Ajay Singh. Professor Singh is a professor of practice, corporate advisor, fellow of the Institute of Directors, and an award-winning author. Amongst his accolades, he's a former CEO of an award-winning fintech firm. He's the professor of practice at RISV Institute of Management Studies and Research. He's authored multiple books and serves as a mentor, professor, and advisor globally. His latest book, of which I'll add a link in the at the end, Cyberstorm, and it talks about unleashing the power of quantum computing and AI. And he's also the member of the task force of the National Quantum Mission for implementation of quantum safe ecosystems in India. So, Professor Ajay, welcome. And then we are joined by Yanay Hedvermiz. Yanay is the CTO of QuantumGate, where they are building quantum safe security infrastructure for organizations across the UAE, GCC, and beyond that. Yanay, great to have you here. And some of the accolades for Yanay, he's the current serving CTO and acting CEO of QuantumGate. 20 years of experience in secure communications, mobile security, and hardware-assisted security systems. Expertise, things like hardware platforms, operating systems, security frameworks, applied cryptography, key management, etc., and has previously held senior leadership roles at CATIM, Intel, and was a pioneering member at the Nokia in the early days. Before I hand over to our speakers, I just want to take a few moments to set the stage. We are going to look at some of the advances and the opportunities that AI and quantum computing have brought. And they are numerous, and they go across industries, from healthcare to finance to government to tech to our own personal lives, but also about the threats that they pose to us, which we'll dive deeper into now. AI and quantum are transformative technologies, no doubt. But the same forces are being weaponized. So AI generating phishing, as we've seen in the last 3 to 4 weeks in particular, is now indistinguishable from real communication. Executives are being impersonated, and we're seeing that even with politicians in real time. The gap between vulnerability being found and being exploited has collapsed to literally minutes and seconds. And only 6% of organizations have an advanced AI strategy in place. On the quantum side of things, AI, I think, is relatively understood, but on the quantum side of things, right, that's where real, this is like snake oil. This is a bit of a myth. So entities like Google, Microsoft, and IBM are making massive breakthroughs, almost it seems on a daily basis, that are compressing timelines faster than anyone has predicted before. And AI is accelerating quantum development itself. So you have the juxtaposition of both of those. And adversaries are already collecting encrypted data today, storing it, and waiting for quantum to arrive, when they'll essentially harvest it, decrypt it, and use it for nefarious purposes. The number of those things that are happening in the background should be concerning to every leader. We see 4% see quantum as an urgent near-term priority, yet cryptographic deprecation, is looking at 2030. Some claim Q-Day, and we'll come to that in a moment, may come sooner in 2029 or even in 2028. And that gap awareness and action is exactly where all of our risks lives. We're here to, once again, to close that gap. So without further ado, let's start setting the stage on the context that I've just set. So, Professor Ajay, let's start with something very, very honest. A lot of CISOs and security leaders are not fully engaged with AI in quantum yet. They're managing, escalating day-to-day threats, stretch teams, competing priorities. Is that a fair observation? And why should today be the moment that people and entities start paying attention?
Thank you, Ibrahim, for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all distinguished participants in this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to you today. A CISO's life is never easy. It's always living on the edge, and more so today because the types of risks that are surfacing every day are making life very difficult to even foresee what kind of threats and risks will follow. But coming specifically to AI and quantum, AI is now suddenly on the center stage now with Claude Mythos saying that we can expose thousands of vulnerabilities across systems, which also includes quantum vulnerabilities, quantum safe vulnerabilities, security vulnerabilities. And of course, there's the quantum threat itself, which is looming large. Now, what is widely thought of is based on certain dated assumptions, and the assumptions were that you need 1,000,000 qubits to break RSA 2048 encryption or ECC encryption. And this belief has lasted fairly long, a few years, if I may say so, maybe 7, 8, 10 years, that sooner or later, but a quantum computer will come. Initially, it was thought of as 2040, when, as they say, cryptographically relevant quantum computer is available, which can break encryption. Will be available to those who want to break encryption. But then over time, these assumptions are proving to be wrong, simply because of two reasons. One is the massive scale of investment by big tech and nation states, which have advanced the research momentum in such a way that breakthroughs are happening almost every day. Recent breakthroughs indicate, and this is the new reality, that from 1,000,000 qubits, things have gone dramatically down to a few thousand qubits and even probably 100 odd qubits, which will be enough to break RSA and ECC encryption. Now, where does that leave us? That means that an ECC encryption, which forms the basis of your TLS, VPNs, blockchain, etc., needs just about 1,250 to 1,500 logical qubits to break encryption, which means that the assumptions we are sitting on today should be revalidated. We should look again at the present landscape and revalidate whether our thinking was right or wrong. Now, as things stand, CISOs probably and other business leaders also were looking at quantum safe migration as a 2030, 2035 problem. But right now, if you factor in all the new developments that have taken place, it seems like a 2026 problem. And therefore, it has to be on the priority table. Is it even on the table of business leaders and CISOs? I don't know. But the point is that if you look at everything that is going around, and if you follow and track quantum developments on a day-to-day basis, like pretty much we are here, you will see that things are advancing at an extremely fast rate. And that is also because of the competitiveness of various companies and various countries to get ahead. So the risks of inaction, we all are aware that, look, it's like a cliff edge risk. You're going to suddenly find quantum computers breaking encryption. Are we going to wait for that moment, or is it time for us to act? Are we willing to withstand the reputational damage that could follow a catastrophe like that? We'll have to think about that. So I think the risks are mounting, the timelines are shrinking dramatically, and research is happening every day. So if you look at all this together, then I think it's time that quantum took its place at the high priority table, and business leaders and CISOs need to look at it very carefully, because migrating to a PQC environment is not a flick of a switch. It's not a technical upgrade. It's going to be system which is going to be driven by strategy, by governance, by technology, by algorithms, by implementations, and testing, which is going to be a fairly long cycle.
Thank you, Professor Ajay. And that really brings the message for me, framing it that this is not a future problem. This is something that everyone needs to be acting on now. And if you aren't already doing something about it, you're late to the table. Thank you very much for that. My next question, AI keeps coming up in every security conversation, but in different ways. Some see it as a tool, some see it as a threat, some see it as just background noise. Janne, question to you. How would you describe what AI is doing to the threat environment right now, not in 3 years' time? What's happening today?
Okay, let me also say good morning to everyone, good day or good evening. Glad to be here. And thank you for the great introductions. This is a good question, Ibrahim. So what we currently see in terms of the AI, one is what's, in my opinion, currently is the most concerning are the deep fakes. Because in this kind of security, we as a human beings, we tend to be the weakest link, especially if we see the friendly faces, which we kind of think that we recognize. We are very easy targets, and there's been multiple examples that how we as a human beings being scammed already. It's either we get the call from the family member, which is a deep fake, or we get even can go into the meeting, which is completely deep fake meeting, and we are being told the instructions to do something which is not true. Then the other thing is that we see the experts who have more knowledge using the AI tools and these platforms. You can actually scale up your attacks, and if you know what you are doing, these are very powerful tools. And I haven't seen much holding back built into any of these platforms. So basically, if you know what to do, you can automate your attacks and use these tools quite effectively to scale up your capabilities.
Thank you, Janne. Thank you. Before I go to the next question, I just want to address the questions that are being asked in the Q&A channel there. Thank you for those questions, and we will be fielding questions at the end. So please do drop your questions in there, and at the end, time dependent, we'll go through them one by one. Janne, thank you very much for your perspective there. My next question. One of the mindset traps that we hear about is organizations thinking that they can wait, that quantum timelines are unclear, that vendors will solve it, that there will be a clear signal when the time is to act, whether it be from vendors, whether it be from governments or regulators or something or other. Is there a magic signal that everyone should be waiting for, Professor Ajay? How do you respond to that?
Well, this is a classic mindset trap that we all suffer from. We are all looking at very, very clear signals, a moment where everyone will know that the quantum threat is upon us and it's here and there, here and now, and we have to do something about it. Will we ever get such a clear signal? I doubt it. And the reason is that such a clear signal has to be interpreted from the various little signals that are coming out every day. If you look at the progress of quantum hardware, how it is progressing, there are various approaches people have taken to developing quantum hardware, right from superconducting to photons to various other approaches. Now, it's still not clear which approach will actually make it, will hit the ground running fastest, which will be successful, which will actually eventually become the de facto choice, or will there be multiples? So that's one part. But then this kind of competition is leading to quick advancements and some announcements that are coming almost on a weekly basis. The other part is that it's not just hardware, it's also algorithms. Now, people always talk in terms of Shor's algorithm, which came in 1994. But then there is another algorithm today, which is called the Jacques Van Meter Gidney algorithm, which slashed the requirements from hundreds of thousands of qubits to a few thousand, or even 1,000, which means that ECC, which needs only about 1,200 to 1,450 logical qubits, could be broken within minutes. So there is progress on the hardware side. There is progress on the software side. We have to put all, and the algorithm side, we have to put these signals together and then look at it holistically and take a judgment call as to how soon or how quickly we should act. And that depends on the risk profile of each organization. What is their risk perception? What is their exposure to risk? But on a broader scale, I would say that things are happening much faster than expected. They happened the same way with AI, when AI suddenly sprung up on us and we were caught unawares, and people are still organizationally catching up with the good of the AI and the bad of the AI and the ugly of the AI. All that is coming up piece by piece. And therefore, I think we are still stuck in the trap that we've got plenty of time. We have a long runway. The runway is becoming very shorter. We shouldn't reach a stage where we don't have a runway and we'll have to do a helicopter takeoff, I guess. So we'll need to keep that in mind, that the runway is getting shorter and that the time required for migration is longer. And therefore, these little signals have to be put together and understood in their overall context and interpreted. No major signal will come, no single signal will come, even if there's a cryptographically relevant quantum computer ready that can break encryption. I doubt whether any formal announcement will come. People will just start breaking encryption. So these are some of the threats that we are dealing with. And I know that there are lots of threats on the table, but hidden threats are always more dangerous than known threats. You know how far a known threat can impact you, but this is an unknown threat, which as I said, it's a cliff edge risk. It will just push you off the cliff.
Yeah. And the message that I'm getting from both Professor Ajay and Yane is that, you know, there is a tendency to treat AI and quantum potentially as two different separate topics. And you've both suggested that they should be addressed together, not as separate, not separately, because of the intermingling, the intertwinement of both of those technologies. I want to hear your perspective on this, Yane. You know, why is that? And what does that intersection look like from a risk perspective? Yane, you're on mute, by the way, Yane.
Thank you. Easy answer, what Professor Ajay was already pointing out, that we are talking about paradigm shift. This is not the technological problem per se. So it's like that's the wrong perspective. So both of these threats and at the same time opportunities, what AI and quantum computing will bring, they are strategic things, you know, like within the organization, you need to start thinking from the top. How are we addressing? What are we doing? And that's why basically you need to start moving immediately. There is no time to just, you know, wait that something happens or something, you know. It's kind of natural that we wait signals. We don't want to be the first one to try out new things. Neither we want to be the last one. That's a natural human behavior. That's how we've been evolving. But these are strategic shift, paradigm shift, and you need to start thinking these like today. How are you addressing, and how are you, on the other hand, how are you gonna benefit or utilize? It won't happen that, you know, that the day won't be there that someone will come to you and tell that, okay, do this and this and this. Or I can also ask that, is your organization or enterprise or whatever it is, are you typically outsourcing your strategy to your suppliers? Are you going to meet your suppliers and asking what is our strategy for this year? That's why you need to claim the driver's seat and start acting today.
Clear. Thank you very much for that. Again, driving home the message that it's not a future issue. People need to be thinking about it now. Thank you very much for that. I just want to switch lanes now to talk about the quantum threat, okay, and unpacking what that really means for organizations. So Yane, let's try and make sure that we're all on the same page in very plain terms, in plain English. What is a quantum computer, and why does it pose a specific threat to the security infrastructure organizations and entities are running today? Please break that down for us.
Okay, this is good question. So somehow we think that the quantum of course quantum is very advanced, and maybe the quantum fundamentals might be difficult to understand how something is possible, and what we have basically learned and used to know. But let's take one step back. So one part of the problem is that the last 25, 30 years in terms of the cryptographic solutions, how we've been building the e-commerce authentication and all of these solutions has been quite stable era. We've been using the technology that I think eventually was invented around 70s when the RSA was kind of invented, and then we came up with Diffie-Hellman, and there we started. Now, the mathematical complexity behind this is that it's relying on the fact that the classical computer that we were familiar in the 70s and 80s can do one operation and then another, so it's a serial operation. So now the mathematical complexity here is that we use this asymmetric encryption for the key exchanges, authentications. We know these keys and the certificate. So certificate is your public key, your key is your private key. Now, it works that we come up with two very large numbers. We call these primes. And then we multiply these together, and that becomes your public key. Now, if you have a classical computer and you try to go back from the multiplication result back to the primes, it is very difficult because you need to do one guessing and then the second guessing and third guessing, and it might take 10,000 years to come back to the actual primes. So one simple example for this is that 3 and 7 multiplied is 21, but if we replace 3 and 7 with something bigger, thousands or tens of thousands, like it becomes a very, very difficult and complex task to go back to the primes. Now, interestingly, the quantum computing using quantum mechanics, and then besides having the 0 and 1 positions, there is also superposition, which enables that this calculus can be actually done in parallel. So, we have a classical computer that does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 serial operation. And now I can actually, do these operations parallel. So instead of spending 10,000 years, I spend 1 hour. And I come back to the private keys. Now, if I'm able to guess your private keys, that's the end of the business in e-banking, e-commerce, authentication, more or less anything and everything we do in the digital world. And that's why we need to start replacing and thinking, how do we replace the mathematical complexity so that it can withstand classical and quantum computing?
Thank you, Yanni. Really, really important perspective there. Professor Ajay, when we talk about, or when people talk about quantum risk, people tend to think about encryption algorithms. But the exposure is, in my opinion, in my limited understanding, much broader than that, isn't it? What else is in scope?
Oh, well, yeah. Everybody is framing the problem as if it's just a question of changing a few algorithms where identify your cryptographic inventory, change a few algorithms, and you will be quantum safe. And I think that is really a fallacy again, because that is just like claiming security. That is not actually certifying trust in any way. Because the problem is that the approved algorithms, of course, NIST has taken 8 years to approve those algorithms. As far as the US and is concerned, many countries have accepted to follow NIST algorithms. There are some countries who are developing algorithms on their own. And algorithm is a central part of cryptography, and that, of course, needs to be understood. But then there are several other vulnerabilities that are accompanied, and they are to do with integrating with legacy architectures, your key management practices, your fallback mechanisms, and how you deal with side channel attacks, which are hardware induced. So these are issues that are going to be part and parcel of the PQC migration. And therefore, migration is a longer term exercise than simply replacing a few algorithms here and there and then be done with it. And that also we are talking now in terms of crypto agility, which means that if these algorithms also tomorrow are broken by a more powerful quantum computer, then do you have something else to replace that with on a quick basis rather than a full PQC migration? So all these issues need to be understood in their totality. Today, you might implement a quantum key distribution system, a QKD system. Is theoretically secure. Everything about it shows that these vulnerabilities that are presently visible to us can be dealt with QKD. But in practical deployment, once we deploy it, you may unearth several other vulnerabilities. It's happening with AI today. Something like a cloud mythos is saying that, look, there are thousands of vulnerabilities we can just unearthed just like that and which can be exploited. And it will give you even a prioritized list of what you should exploit first. So if it's happening with AI, the same AI will work on quantum systems as well and give you all the vulnerabilities. So it's really, you're creating a new environment. And that's why we say we are entering the AI and quantum era and not just doing some kind of technical upgrades here and there to ensure that we are quantum safe. It's not about just certifying trust and being up to date with the current standards and so on. It is to do with a complete mind shift in terms of the security paradigm. And then looking at it holistically again to ensure that your environment is totally safe as well as your quantum risk is. So you must use other technologies like zero trust. You must use other technologies which help you with endpoint security. You must use other complementary technologies along with your PQC migration to data leak prevention technologies, so that it's a more holistic approach to this migration, because you're not going to migrate again and again. So you need therefore a broader view of this migration exercise. It is said to be a quantum migration exercise, but I look at it as a complete IT infrastructure revival, actually, I would say, or renewal to meet for the next 10, 15 years. So it's not going to be just for the next couple of years.
Clear. Thank you very much for spelling that out like that. Very, very clear. There is a phrase we hear a lot, both internally within our work environments, also, in the media. Sometimes it's abbreviated to HNDL. Sometimes the full word, harvest now, decrypt later. Yannick, can you take a moment to explain what that means and why it's not a future scenario, but that's something that security teams need to thinking about right now? Explain that to us again, please.
Yeah, it's called harvest now, decrypt later. So what it means is that, again, organizations, like if we want to protect our data, we have a reason to do so. Typically, the data protection scheme also includes the, expiration. So it's like, if we are exchanging emails between you and me, we want to maybe keep it secret, I don't know, like, or confidential, weeks or months. Now, if we have data related to the defense systems, or we have government data or strategic plans, IP on the enterprise level. All of this data, healthcare data, all of this data is most probably the data expiration is we're talking about 10, 15, 20, even 50 years, depending on the nature of the data. Now, let's say we have the quantum cryptographically relevant computer or the capability available in 5 or 10 years. Your data expiration shelf life is we're talking about 20, 30 years that we want to protect. Now, and we typically also, the scenario is that we connect remotely, or we exchange data, or we share the data between different locations. Very rarely we have operating in a network where we only have a dedicated cable that no one can tap. So internet is very easy to follow and monitor and record. That's why we use the solutions like VPN, virtual private network, or other encryption methods, mechanism to protect our connection. Now, this connection is going through the multiple hops, multiple locations, and there are someone who is capable of basically monitoring and recording that traffic, as we've seen in the news during the past 5-10 years. So typically it's a government level, but there might be other actors as well. So let's say I'm controlling a major node in the interwebs. I'm just storing everything, all the traffic that goes through. Now, for now, it's still protected because most of our solutions are resistant and withstand the classical computers. But let's say in 5 years I have the capability available, then I can go back to my storage and start opening the packages one by one. And because, as I explained, how we are doing the key exchange and authentication and how these connections are established, they will become vulnerable for the quantum device. And then I can basically unfold the packets and see what was your secret.
Clear. Thank you very much, Janne. I've got to be honest, even I didn't fully understand, the true concept of that. But that answer was very, very clear. Thank you. I'm going to switch lanes again now. I'm based in the UAE, and in the UAE in November 2024, or the UAE Cybersecurity Council enacted very strict PQC regulations that are now mandating entities to do several things, and they've broken down to two categories, tier 1 and tier 2. And all around the globe, no matter where you look or what continent you look at, there are countries that are in that same race, that because of the upcoming threat from both AI and quantum computing, are mandating regulations and creating policies around what entities should be doing in time, the migration, the planning, the analysis, the discovery, etc. India very recently has enacted quite strict PQC regulations as well. I just want to ask a couple of questions around that into India's roadmap and some of the global implications. So, Professor Ajay, you contributed directly to India's National Quantum Task Force and the National PQC roadmap. We have a large audience here this morning on this webinar from India. For those who have not yet read it, what does it say, and what is India trying to achieve through these regulations?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And there are a few parts to this question. The first part is, what are we trying to accomplish? The National Quantum Mission has set up 4 thematic hubs across the country, and the focus is not just on quantum computing, but on quantum communication, quantum sensing, and quantum materials. So there are 4 different themes that are being followed up, and infrastructure has been put in place for actually doing intensive research on in these 4 areas. The second part, of course, for which the task force started work about 8-9 months back, the first report is out, and the report has 2 parts. The first part of the report is giving a roadmap as to what are the milestones that we should pursue as a country And these milestones are, of course, to be executed via various regulators, because the regulators are the ones who will oversee the entire PQC migration, and if need be, they will mandate, they will issue mandates for PQC migration. The regulators have been sensitized and made aware of the threat that exists, including the HNDL threat. So the threats have the awareness has now percolated down to each vertical organization, like the BFSI segment, like the telecom regulators, the power grid regulators, etc., the SEBI. And so all these regulators are now building plans around the milestones that the NQM, and aligning with the NQM timelines. One of the most aggressive milestones is the milestone 1. While countries all over the world have taken time till 2028, 2029 to achieve milestone 1, we thought it wiser that we complete this milestone by 2027. And the reason is that, which we've already discussed, that we see things happening much sooner than later. And other countries around the world also have been revising their timelines forward. What does milestone 1 mean? It means something fairly simple, actually, because if you ease into it, then when the harder milestones come up, then you'll be well prepared for it. The first milestone simply asks these organizations to uh, sensitize their boards, their operating boards, about quantum risks, put a governance system into place, put their quantum strategy on priority, determine their quantum priority not just for becoming quantum safe, but also for harnessing quantum for the opportunity that it offers, coming up with their cryptographic asset inventory, dividing that cryptographic asset inventory into 4 categories, or 3 categories. That is the high risk cryptographic assets, the moderate risks, and the low risk ones. And once having done that and got an idea and a handle of what is the work involved to be done, they can go ahead and prepare their individual roadmaps at the sectoral level and at the organization level. And it would be lovely if they move on to do some PQC pilots. Now, this would actually set them by the end of 2027 to be ready to start migration to their high priority systems, which is the part of the next milestone. Because once they reach the next milestone, then the high priority systems will come into play. Here, the thing is that they need to upgrade PKIs, they need to upgrade HSMs, they need to determine what are their success factors for completing this migration, how testing will be done, and therefore the second migration will include migration of the high priority system. And then there's more time to achieve milestone 3, when the whole PQC migration will be completed and trust chains will be in place, and digital signature, the whole PKI system will be in place and quantum safe. And also the whole ecosystem has evolved further till that date. Now, the second part of the report deals with standards and certification. Now, the question is, how do you certify or validate any vendor's offering today in terms of whether it is really PQC compliant or not? How does any organization know, barring the claims of the vendors themselves, is their software PQC compliant or not? So therefore, 4 levels of assurance levels, of quantum assurance levels, have been determined, from level 1 to level 4, level 4 being the highest for very high priority cryptographic assets, and level 1 for the lowest priority assets. So an organization will have actually mix of level 1 to 4 in terms of their cryptographic inventory, and they can go for the level of certification required for that particular asset. Now, in order to carry out these certifications, we need infrastructure, we need sandboxes, we need labs to be set up. And the second part of the report deals with the setting up of this infrastructure, the laboratories across the country, both in the public sector as well as the private sector, which will certify implementations, and not just algorithms, but implementations of quantum safe PQC migration, so that those implementations will be certified And there are some timelines given for certification that the certification will last for a couple of years. And if there are any major changes, then recertification or validation will have to be sought in the interim. So that's the overall plan. And we might be a little late to start off to get off the blocks, but I think we will catch up. The focus is very intensely on becoming quantum safe, and there's also a lot of focus on developing indigenous technology and innovation, which will support the whole quantum ecosystem, not just products for quantum safety, but the entire quantum ecosystem as it unfolds.
Thank you very much, Professor Ajay, for your perspectives on that. My next question, this is to Yanni. If a CISO is, on this call, on this webinar, and is watching and listening into this today, I need to move this. What does the first 90-day actually look like? Not the full migration, but just the first real initial steps to that journey.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good question. So the clients we currently are working with, they know something. They've heard that we need to start doing something, and then the simple question, what should we be doing? So what should we be doing now is actually the question. Now, in order to start planning your strategy and deciding your next steps, the answer is kind of simple. Of course, there are some complexities, but the most of the organizations don't actually know what their cryptographic assets are. And this is to me, it's actually I've been, as you mentioned, working in cybersecurity space last 25 years. So even I was like a bit shocked when I realized how bad the situation is. So the typical finding is that less than 30% of the cryptographic assets are known or managed. So typically when we go and we meet our clients and discuss, they manage their keys and the certificates. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Because you also typically have in your systems, you have keys and the certificates that you didn't know exist or you are not managing. And the simple reason is that, these systems have been evolving over years. And as Professor Ajay was pointing out, now we have reached the crossroad where we need to actually start redesigning things. It's not like we just add stuff on top of the previous layer. This is my analogy how we reach this far. So we first will put this and this and this and that, and then some CISO decided we need this thing, and then we need this thing, and typically, unfortunately, it led us into this layer cake. And now the problem is that we don't actually know what's in it in terms of the cryptographic assets. And then if you need to start creating the strategy and roadmaps, it is paramount that you understand what you have in your house and engine room before you can start doing anything else. So some of the stuff you have, it might be usable in the going forward. You might be able to upgrade it, and some parts of the system you need to rebuild. So what you can do now and what you need to do now is that you need to start building the inventory, or I would say start building your awareness, start training your team. Because one of the problem here is that we tend to focus to the technology, but this is also because this is paradigm shift. People like me been doing this 25 years, and the stuff I learned 30 years in university, 30 years ago in university, is now expiring. So even I need to start learning new things, and everyone in the CISO department need to start learning new things. And the things we thought are working, they stop working. So awareness is very important. So this is a change project. And then you start building the inventory, start thinking about the asset management for the asset class that you haven't done before. We haven't done it. And also the one very interesting byproduct or the outcome when we build the inventories is the following. We typically find something which is completely outdated already today, according to today's standards. So we call it a deprecated cryptographic things. So which means that you actually are already bleeding or your houses are partially on fire. You just didn't know that. So start, training your people, start training yourself, and start creating the inventory. These are the
Clear.
first immediate steps. Thank you.
Clear. Thank you very much, Yane, for breaking that down. Yane, I know you have a level or P3 fire to put out in the background. So thank you very much for coming on this call. Please stay on as long as you can, but when you need
Thank
to
you.
drop, that's absolutely fine with us. So thank you very much for attending and giving your time this morning. I have one more question for Professor Ajay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move lanes again and go to the questions. We've had a number of questions from the audience. Really good to see those. But before I jump to the questions, Professor Ajay, the last question to you. And essentially, before we open the questions to the audience, if I were to ask you, what is the single thing that you want every security leader who is on this call or everyone that's working in the security space on this call to walk away with today? What would that one thing be?
Well, the way I look at it is that the thing that I would walk away with if I was a CISO is that I would look at sensitizing my organization at multiple levels, starting from the board to the CEO, of the importance of moving towards PQC migration, doing it today, starting the journey today. And I would actually paraphrase it a little differently. I would use the words quantum assurance, which actually means not just security, but resilience also, and a one-time exercise that will move you towards quantum assurance. So I would go to my CEO, my board members, and inform them or educate them on the things that lie ahead. Everybody is getting information in bits and pieces, which is not good enough to understand this whole problem in its entirety. Second is people at business leaders want to know exactly what is the impact if we don't do this? What is the impact if we delay this? And what will I get if we complete this? So these are the questions that are going to be asked. And if these three questions can be answered to business leaders, then the required support will follow. And that will set the organization onto the quantum assurance journey. It's going to be a longish journey, but then there is a little bit of short-term pain, but then there is a lot of long-term gain. So it has to be sold to the management as such.
Clear. Thank you very much, Professor Ajay. I'm now going to go over to the questions that are being asked in the group. However, before I do that, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We have 9 minutes, and I'm very pleasantly surprised as to the number of questions that people are asking. This is fantastic to see. So if I do not cover all of the questions, I promise those who've put the questions there that we will answer each and every single one. It just may not be live on this call. So we've got, kind of 7 or 8 minutes for the questions. So the first question, and Yana, maybe I'll pose that to you because of the nature of the question and your expertise. So in distributed systems like 5G core networks, how are organizations ensuring trust continuity across identity, authorization, and service interactions during quantum safe migration when components upgrade at different times?
Good question. Unfortunately, we don't have really time to address this in fully, so let me simplify it a bit because this is gonna face in several other areas as well. So interoperability is the key question. So whatever systems we currently have built, whatever certificates, key management systems we have, those are extremely interoperable. So unfortunately, we are now moving into the era with the PQC solutions that the world is not this level of interoperable anymore. And also, Professor Ajay already mentioned earlier that the testing, especially interoperability wise, is becoming very important for the business continuity.
Thank you, Yanni. Question number 2. We have already witnessed the significant impact of AI enabled by current GPU capabilities. Looking ahead, how might this evolve further with the advent of quantum computing? How could this technology transform industries, influence daily life, and reshape the future for humanity? It's a very, very big question, very, very wide question. Additionally, how should individuals and organizations begin preparing now to adapt effectively to these changes? Professor Ajay, perhaps you can take that question.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a very interesting question, and it's a question that will be only answered completely in the future. But let me give it a shot. Now, AI and quantum are going to play in concert with each other. AI is going to enable quantum, quantum is going to enable AI. So if you look at the roles of the two, both can be disruptors, both can be value creators. So we look at them as disruptors as well as value creators. And therefore, you need to look at the opportunities that they bring and the opportunities that they bring individually to the table. There are several as far as AI is concerned. As far as quantum is concerned, if I were to summarize in one line, I would say that a quantum computer will solve problems which were thought were completely unsolvable in the past. Just a small example of drug discovery. Drug discovery typically takes about 15 years today. And AI will reduce that 15 years by about 30%. So you brought down using AI by 30%. Now you use quantum computers along with this, that will bring it down by further 40%. What does it mean for the common individual, the common man, as the question says? It means a lot. If your timeline for drug discovery is coming down to 2 years and 3 years, your drugs are going to be available much faster and they're going to be much cheaper because the cost of bringing out a drug is going to be much cheaper than when it took 15 years and probably a whole lot of research gone into it. So this is just one example. There are several other examples of fraud management, and companies like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are already at it because they know that in algorithmic trading, all these are applications where quantum will provide the speed, power, and AI will provide the intelligence, and together they'll create some totally new systems. So the applications are endless. There's logistics and optimization for logistics and so on. So there are a large number of application areas coming up, and probably there can be a full-fledged discussion on just quantum and AI applications, but that should probably answer the question in a short answer.
Thank you very much, Professor Ajay. Next question to Yanni. Can PQC replace current solutions?
I think we spent 45 minutes here trying to explain that it's not can, it must.
Yeah.
Post-quantum cryptography has to replace the existing solutions that we currently today use. How that's going to happen, that's a different discussion, and it will go into phases. But yes, for sure.
Thank you very much for that. Next question I have, till what extent quantum computing has been used in real world problems or in limited early stage ways, pilots, prototypes, and niche production, etc., or is it not yet widely used at scale like classical HPC or AI? Professor Ajay, do you want to take that question? Did you understand that?
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, no, I got the question. And I think it's a very interesting question because people are going to judge the progress of quantum by its usage and by its applications. And that's where the real value of quantum will eventually emerge. What's happening today? Let's look at what is happening today. There are early applications. There are lots of pilots. Lots of organizations have made an early start. And there's a whole list of organizations in the automotive sector, in the financial sector, in the pharma sector, which have already actually started using and building use cases around quantum technologies. How many computers there are? There are about 50 quantum computers in the world today. How many will there be in say by 2030, maybe about 5,000, 6,000 computers. So there's not going to be a lot. But these are all going to be available on a QAS basis. That means quantum as a service. So these are going to be installed in various places. The first one, IBM has just installed in the Andhra Valley, yes, on World Quantum Day on 14th. And that is available to researchers, that's available to scientists. And you can use that computer. You will be given time slots, and you can buy credits, and that's the way the quantum computer is going to be accessible to a lot of people. The development tools are free. By the way, many of these vendors are giving you downloadable tools if you want to learn QuizKit, or you want to learn Circ, or you want to learn Microsoft's offering. You can download these and learn them. They're freely available, but deployment costs are going to be there. And also simulations can be done on classical computers as well. So you can test your applications today and get ready.
Professor Ajay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, regrettably, we are at the end of this webinar now. I am overwhelmed as to how many people actually join this webinar today. And I think this gives us an indication of how real this area of AI, quantum, the threats that it poses, is. It's really real. And I'm also overwhelmed as to the sheer number of questions, and the very good questions that have been posed, most of which I have not been able to get to, for which I do apologize. But my commitment, my promise to everyone is that each and every single one of your questions will be answered post this session. My colleagues have dropped a note and some resources, some links, as Professor Ajay was alluding to, in the notes, in the messaging below. So please do take a moment to read those. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This webinar is the first of a series of webinars we're going to be running on this topic. And essentially, it's to help prepare everyone for what's coming, not just in a specific area, India, UAE, but other regions, but also generally, across the board. I just want to say that everyone's probably got our email from the invitation that was sent out. I'm also on LinkedIn. My name is Ibrahim Sultan. I'm the Director of Growth at QuantumGate. Please do connect with me and Yane, Professor Ajay, as well. Any other questions that you have post this call, please don't hesitate to connect with us direct and ask us. But otherwise, thank you, everybody, for joining today. It's been a pleasure hosting this, and I really look forward to connecting with you all, and also seeing you on the next webinar as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful day and the rest of the week. Thank you, Professor Ajay.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you.